So thanks everyone, and appreciate the opportunity to come and get together with everybody today. So just a great group of people that are here at the senior center. I was here yesterday talking to my coffee with the town manager group, so I see some of my comrades here from that group. But I love to be able to get together with folks and talk about what's going on in town and just ask, and so you can ask the questions that sometimes you don't get always the answers to. And I'll try and give you the most honest answer I can give you. Sometimes I can't talk about certain things, but certain things, if I can, I certainly will. It's important that we talk directly about a lot of issues. And right now, there's a lot of things that have been going on, and we're getting ready to close the town meeting. And you know something, as I look back, I've been doing this now for about 36 years. I just started my 36th year of being a manager in local government. And you know, as much as they change, they're still the same. And that you still run into challenges every single year about one issue versus another, where it's a budget, or if it's a you know, an operational issue, or it's a personality glitch, or there's a staff member changes or something like that, or you know, there's a major controversy over a project or something like that. But you know, what's a little bit concerning to me these days is the tone of public dialogue is getting a little bit more. A little more challenging than it has been in the past. And I think it's really important that we don't lose sight of the fact that, you know, we're all human beings, and we're all challenged with trying to fix things, but you know, we shouldn't take things on a personal level, just sort of generate the ideas towards fixing things. We try to do that, but it doesn't always work out that way, and sometimes it's messy. Now, I was reading an editorial that was written recently in the newspaper, and I talked about the fact, you know, I'd gotten into a bit of a dialogue with the chairman of the advisory committee about the budget process, and they picked up on the fact that they said that, you know, that they were concerned that I was mad because I wasn't getting the rubber stamp the budget. Well, that wasn't the point. They missed the point. The point was, it's all about public dialogue. And I was upset about the fact we never had a public dialogue about the cuts they were making. And that was the concern I had, because that's not transparent to people. And that's what concerns me the most. We need to be transparent about those things. When it comes to personnel issues, I can't be transparent because I have to respect people's rights. But when it comes to public budgets and process, we need to be transparent about that, because those are public dollars. And we need to let the people know that what we're doing is, and why we're doing certain things, and have the dialogue with people. At the end of the day, if people don't want to support certain things, that's democracy. We have the right to do that. You can disagree on that. And I welcome the dialogue and debate on those things, because at the end of the day, debate usually results in a good decision. So I will tell you that some of the cuts that they actually proposed to make, I agreed with. And I was willing to have that conversation. So, but we never had it, and I think that's the biggest concern to me. And I hope that folks will do that. But having it on town meeting floor is not always the easiest thing, because unfortunately, when people go to town meeting, it's the first meeting they've gone to all year long, and they haven't heard any of the debate that's gone on about the discussions up to that point. I mean, people are smart. I mean, I give them that. You know, they really are. But most people are not engaged and involved in the discussions at a level of detail that really is important in making those big decisions. So that's really the sort of the overriding comment that I have right now, is that let's encourage public dialogue. Let's have a strategic discussion about budgets. Let's find out where people really want to go, and are we doing the right thing? You know, I think I'm doing the right thing. I believe I am, but by the same token, I want to have confirmation of that, and let people tell me that, you know, where I'm missing along the way.
It would be nice to have those meetings that they have on cable.
I'm a firm believer, and I agree with you, Bob. I couldn't disagree. I couldn't say that strong. I think that discussion, I believe those meetings should be televised. I've said that directly to the committee and as well as the moderator. And I said, you know, that's important, because people see the public dialogue and the debate that goes on, so they can see what goes on. And so these things are not discussed lightly. They're very, very well discussed. They're very well brought out, and really well researched and discussed in a very high level of detail. So unfortunately, people don't see that, and I think that's missing from the equation. So I think I'd like to see more of that, and so I agree with you 100%. We should do that. There's the other side of that argument, though, is the fact that there's concern that people who serve on advisory committees are not elected, they're appointed, and some of the decisions are controversial, and people will get concerned that, you know, they'll be personally engaged by individuals that have a different viewpoint. Well, that's also part of democracy, though. You know, and if you want to serve in that role, then you should expect the fact there's going to have people going to have different levels of opinion, and you're going to have to balance that. And sometimes when that opinion's heard, it might persuade you to think otherwise. So that's the whole process too, and that's why I encourage that. I think it's
Time
really
for them
important.
to get out of the kitchen, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I think it's good to have the openness is really important, and I think that's the key. So I'm really pleased to see that at least we're having a dialogue about that right now, and people are thinking about that. So I think that's actually a good thing. So what's on your mind collectively? I'd be curious to hear what's some of the important things that you see going on in the community these days. And what can we do better? What we can improve? Or what do you like that's going on? And either one way or the other. I'm happy to hear it.
The town can be more frugal in its spending.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you that, David. So how can the town be more frugal, and what do you mean by that? What do you think?
Well, I've been studying this, and taxes have gone up quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the program and some of the budget is too large.
Okay.
Okay, and it needs to be pared down.
Okay.
I think that what the advisory committee was thinking is right for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one of the cuts was a bit too much, maybe back to 10% instead of 20, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, we should go through all of those programs when the advisory committee is meeting. You know, and they go through it. They have 3 different subcommittees that work through all of this stuff, penny for penny.
Yep.
And a lot of time, the town makes its decision before they can, you know, make it known. But if people haven't been attending the meetings, they wouldn't know how that advisory committee is working hard for the benefit of the citizens, not particularly for the town.
So you just endorsed what I just said, which was show it on TV, let people know how hard they're working at this.
I talked to them about that when Linda came before the town Republican committee. She explained all of this, all that goes on in the advisory committee. And, you know, there are people that live outside of state that are being paid for positions here in Foxboro. That's senseless.
Well, let me. So here's another viewpoint of that. Okay, is that if we took the perspective that if you live in Foxboro and the only people we should hire is in Foxboro, what happens to the kids that don't get hired in Foxboro? They have to go somewhere to work, right?
How many? How many of the people in Florida come up here?
Well, yeah, that's true, but they usually go down there when they're retiring.
Yeah,
a lot of them
they
go
stay
down
down here. They don't
I usually-
come back.
Yeah. Well, I think what's happened down there is that's a completely different structure in terms of how they do things down there. In terms of how they don't tax. There's no state income tax, so it's a different structure altogether. But they pick up a lot of money on the tourism. That's how they make ends meet. So you raised a couple points, and the thing that we struggle with, and I said this yesterday, and I think you heard this, yes, Charles, was the fact that, you know, when we start the budget process, I've yet to come up with any time in the budget process for 36 years now. I've been doing that. I thought about this. I've yet to come to a single budget process where people say we need less money in the budget. Nobody's ever said that to me, ever, until the end of the process. They say, well, we want less. Well, tell me, what less do you want? And nobody can say what less they want. Because what's happening is that, do you want fewer cops? No. Do you want fewer firefighters? No. Do you want smaller schools? No. I mean, do you want, and the answer is that everybody wants the services, but nobody wants to pay for them. And that's what it comes down to. And so I think what we try to do is balance that.
Give people more choices.
Well,
I would ask one question.
More choices.
okay, so.
I know you can come back to your point.
Yeah,
I
sure.
have to agree with you and Bob that
Yeah.
the TV idea is good. This is 10-year-old data and I haven't looked since.
Okay.
Does the schools automatically get 70% of the budget?
It's,
mean, is that
it's
written
it's
in
pretty
stone
common. Actually, I don't know if it's actually 70. I think it's closer to about 60, 40, 55,
Okay.
60, 45.
So it's different
yeah.
to what it was 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
it's
Okay.
like 55, 45 in that
So it's
range.
not unassailable?
No, it's not. It's actually, it's closer to the 50-50 split that you typically would see. But I will tell you,
When you
this-
say typically compared to...
well,
surrounding-
typically, I will tell you that it's actually higher.
Mhm.
It's, in many cases, I've seen it as high as 70%, 70, 30%. It all depends upon the type of community that you're in. Now, if you're in a community that
Yep.
has a
Oh,
lot
okay.
of residential components and little commercial, then you're gonna have more of a split, because what'll happen is there'll be a lot more kids in those communities.
So one is not unassailable, that
Yeah,
was
exactly.
my first point. The second
Exactly,
point was, at a town meeting one time, and again, I'm derelict in turning up for these things, but
No, that's okay.
there was a votes going, we're passing them like crazy, they didn't sound bad, I'd only read something when I was in the actual meeting itself.
Sure.
It was, if your house causes pollution in the street or whatever, in the drain systems, I'll get to my point at the end.
Yep.
This has gone through all sorts of committees and recommending we vote on this, but they take away your house because you've got to pay for the cleanup. And now everybody's thinking, oh, that's a good idea, they caused the problem. When I'm sitting there with a different thought pattern saying, well, you know, I got a house where Paul Revere was in 200 years ago.
Right.
What if he drops some mercury and I'm paying for it 17 owners later?
Yeah.
It wasn't me who dropped the mercury that went on the street, it was
Yeah.
Paul Revere.
Right,
So you
right.
take that for any place in Foxboro, you know, some people have got new houses, well, that's where they used to bury the junk before we got the dump, before we closed the
Right,
dump.
that's
You
right.
have no idea what's on your land,
Yeah,
in other
that's right,
words.
that's right.
So there was a different thought going through my head. I have no idea what's on my land, and it wasn't personal because my land happens to get it from the road rather than me put it in the road. So that sort of thought pattern, to think beyond somebody says, I don't want the town having a cost of cleanup of this person, we're going to take away their house. If that was on the TV show, to make my point, the other thoughts of, wait a minute, you could have thought about this?
Yeah.
This guy's just bought this house 200 years ago, somebody ruined it,
Sure.
you're taking away his house? That's
Yeah.
not right.
Right.
And then to say in a meeting, you can challenge this, yeah, that's going to cost you 50 grand
Yeah.
to challenge something. I haven't got 50 grand to
Right.
challenge something.
Right.
So I like your idea, you know, of making it, because if you're focused on something in a meeting, this person in town has caused a problem.
Right.
And I'm saying, well, actually, he didn't. He did.
Right.
You've gone after the wrong person.
Right.
And telling this person he can challenge it is not good when you've already run out of money, the
Right.
point about where the costs are going.
Yeah.
So I think that is an excellent way to get it done.
And ultimately, when you have that kind of discussion, and by the way, I think there's a couple pieces of that you may not be aware
Oh,
of.
the group agreed with me, actually.
Yeah, yeah,
We voted that one down.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But I think what needed to be done in that was, there was a lot more to that discussion that didn't get presented because time, when you see, the other challenge, you have one meeting, or maybe two meetings a year where this all comes out, and all these things get discussed, and we've been working on it for months, and yet, unfortunately, what happens is that the momentum builds on a certain position, and guess what? The thing gets voted down for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And that happens. It happens a lot of times.
Well, yeah, but in
So-
the meeting, somebody was focusing on like sewerage or something. I'm thinking, look,
Yeah.
if you call something insurance background,
Sure.
if you start
Yeah.
talking about contamination, I mean,
Yeah.
breathing CO2 now is considered contamination.
Yeah.
You're all contaminating this place.
Yeah.
It's such a wide definition
Sure it
of
is.
a word.
Yeah.
To use a word like that means
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you can stick your head in water for 4 minutes,
Yeah.
you die. Let's ban water. You
Yeah.
know, that's the way it's got now.
Yeah.
So you're in that environment.
We're living in a world of extreme positions.
Exactly.
That's absolutely true. So that makes it extraordinarily difficult to get back to the middle. because you're either, if you take a look at where Congress is going right now, it's like there's such extreme positions that there's no middle. So which really is troubling, because we're not gonna get anything done constructively if we're all worried about who's gonna investigate who.
But the other point on that meeting.
That's reality.
The point on that meeting was, if somebody's in a meeting, you can't hide behind something. Your point
Right.
about you don't want to face up.
Yeah.
But at least you should be giving pros and cons.
Yes,
If
absolutely.
you give some pros and cons, and maybe you have to weight those a little.
Yeah.
And if it comes down to cost at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it doesn't matter what you do. It's called we can't afford it.
Right, right.
Sorry about that. But you would eat me too,
Yes,
damn
yes.
vampire. But I'm too young for you.
All right, so
Can you imagine going on a trip with him? You can't get him right in.
there you go. So what's your
At
what's your
least you
question?
understood what I
Bob?
said for a change.
What's your question?
My point being, on one of these things, which you started off with, pros and cons mean somebody's thought about it. Whether
Right.
they've got all the pros and cons is another issue.
Right.
Some pros are more important than some cons, and vice versa. That sort of dialogue, at least when it's laid out, can give something. At the end of the day,
Well-
maybe you do nothing,
Yeah.
but you've had the discussion.
And so my point on that, Jeff, is that if you discuss it and you debate it, you end up with a better decision. You always.
As long as it's not a
always-
committee coming up with a horse and they design a camel, we don't want any of that.
I get that too,
Yeah.
but sometimes that's democracy too.
Yeah,
So that happens that way sometimes.
Yeah.
But Bob, you're going to say something, right?
Well, all I was gonna say was, can you imagine going on a trip with this
Oh,
guy?
yeah, no. No, so I guess the point in all of this is that I just think that we need to get back to more of a public dialogue about solutions. And, there's sort of a written rule that I have, and it's unwritten as well, but when I talk to my department heads, I say, look, if you're gonna come into my office, I want you to come in with your solutions, don't give me your problems. Because I have plenty of problems to deal with. I wanna know what your solutions are gonna be. Because when you bring a solution to the table, then we can have a real dialogue about what the pros and cons are. But if you just say to me, I don't like that, that doesn't give me anything to work with. I mean, it just tells me that, you just have an opinion on something. But it's always better to have an opinion and a solution at the same time. Because when you have a solution, that means that we can get closer to where the middle is and what the right solution is. And that's really where I think we've missed that point in recent discussions. And I really like having that kind of discussion.
And the careful part is, it depends on the strength of the characters in the room as
Yes.
to
Right,
their
exactly.
ability to twist things.
Right.
Mr. Ford, I like
Yeah.
that. If I asked the people what they wanted, they want a faster horse.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That
Exactly.
sometimes the driver is incorrect.
Right.
The premise
Exactly.
is wrong.
Right. So this is the challenge we're in right now is and the environment we're in is such that and what's even filtered down. One thing I've noticed too is that there's a lot of frustration on the federal level based upon what you see in the papers about the House and the Senate and the President going back and forth about who's right and who's wrong, and it's so frustrating to watch for me, because what's happening is that filters down to the state level and then filters down to the local level. And guess who gets the brunt of that? We do. Because we're the only accessible piece of that on a regular daily basis. The other two groups, the state and the federal, are more insulated from that process than we are. Now, I will say, for the most part, I do hear a lot of bit of debate even at the state level, but it's rare that I hear the federal level debate that goes on, because with your congressmen and your senators at that level, I mean, they show up usually, at the times when it's election time, they'll come back into the districts and they'll talk to you about those things. Every so often they'll bring back a really good issue, but more often than not, they're in Washington dealing with issues on a much higher level, as they should be. But by the same token, are they really truly being reflective of what people want? And I think there's been a disconnect there, and I think that really troubles me. The problem is that when there's that level of frustration, it comes back and haunts us on the local level. Because people think that if I can address it on the local level, that'll eventually filter up to the high level. It doesn't work that way. I mean, what's happened here is on the local level is really affecting us directly. And I think that's the thing that we have to be most cognizant of, recognize the most. So, other questions you may have that's troubling you right now, things that are, or solutions, yes,
In line with your point about transparency,
yes,
I'm somebody who's not enamored of computers.
yeah,
The Foxboro Reporter used to print the agenda
Yeah.
for town meeting
Yeah.
with the advisory committee input.
Yeah.
Apparently, they don't do that anymore,
right.
and I wish they would get back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, part of the challenge is always, is that newspapers are a dying breed.
Unfortunately, you're right.
Yeah, and I think, you've seen it where there's virtually no coverage. I mean, Jeff Peterson does cover us now, but he's doing that voluntarily. So he's not even doing it, he doesn't really get paid for it. I mean, I think he gets paid maybe about a fraction of what he used to get paid. He used to be one of the chief editors,
Publisher.
the publisher of the newspaper. So he has, it's no longer happening for him on that level, and all the local reporters are gone. There are no local reporters anymore, so it's,
Which douses our democracy.
well, it does. I think it's having, and you know, what it's fallen to is Twitter and Facebook. And that's problematic, because that's just people just hiding behind electronics, saying what they want, but not really giving you both sides of the issue.
That's your virtual life.
Yeah, exactly right, and I think that's a real challenge for us to deal with as well. We monitor it, and because we want to make sure that if there are things that are really off base, we want to be able to go out there and try and respond to it. But today, we're focused primarily on just giving people facts, and I think that's really important. I heard this has been on Twitter recently or Facebook recently, that during the past 6 years we've added 23 positions on the town side of government. Not even close remotely to be true. We've added 8 positions in the past 6 years. And so, and when people say stuff like that, they hear about it and they say it's true. It's not true. I have the facts to prove that. So it's really frustrating, because we hear these things and we have to respond to them immediately. Remember one thing: it takes no effort to tell a lie, but it takes a lot of effort to correct it. All right, and so we have to constantly, be chasing those kind of things. I'd rather be out in front of these things, having the public debate, having the public discussions about what's important and what people like. So I mean, what do you think that's good? And what do you think about the downtown project, about the fire station? What do you think? What do you hear about that? Or any thoughts about that? Any concerns or issues about that? Well, this is the new fire station project that's going to come up. It should be assigned or given awarded to the winner probably in a couple of weeks, right after town meeting. So hoping that this is the old fire station in the center of town.
Oh.
Yeah. That project it's been going on for like 12 years, if I'm not mistaken, Bob. You think?
Long time.
Well, about 12 years it's been going on. Since I've been there, I think I've put it out to bid like 4 times, and this is finally we got one that's going to work, we think. So yeah, you were going to say something.
What are they gonna do about parking?
Well, believe it or not, this is an interesting thing. There's plenty of parking in the downtown. It's just nobody knows where it is. All right, and that's really the truth.
I think they know where it is, but they don't want to walk to where they have to go.
Well, that's also true too, Bob. So if you're at Rentham Village and you park your car in a parking lot, how far do you walk to get to the village? You walk a long ways.
They need
Right?
golf carts.
Yeah. So you go to major malls and you get out of your car. You always walk a distance to get to where you want to go.
It's funny, people will do that in the mall, but
Yeah.
they won't do it.
They won't do it in downtown.
No, they won't do it in the parking lot either.
Yeah.
They want to park near the front and then walk for miles, because they all park next to me.
Yeah, we're interesting creatures of habit in that respect. So, but I will tell you this: having my most recent work was in Dedham, where I was there for like 12 years, and the whole downtown area got rebuilt, and there's no parking. No parking. Everybody talks about that as being the one issue that we need to address. I look at downtown Foxboro, there's parking everywhere. So it just needs to be, we need to have a plan. There's a wayfinding process that we're working on, right, putting up new signs that will actually get people to find where the parking is. So that's something we're fully aware of.
Just be careful on history on things that are worth it and things that are not worth it. Example being, you go down Route 95 into Pawtucket, Rhode Island, you have to do a quick left, a quick right, you're curving like crazy.
Yeah.
That was done instead of a straight line because of the bloody school on a hill.
Yeah.
Which of course everybody went to and everybody wants to save. They're all dead now, and
Yeah.
we're stuck with a curve in the road and a crappy old school with cracks in it. So that's what happens in towns when you start to preserve things that you have a relationship with.
Yeah.
But quite honestly, it's an ugly looking thing. Knock
Yeah.
it down, build a restaurant with a rooftop thing, and we can all look across the common. But that's another, or save the bricks and make a nice path and put your name on it.
Yeah, there you go.
But there's a value to things that some have that some are
Yeah.
other, and it can take over from the real value.
Right.
Because you have a relationship with this cup, which I can't give up.
Yeah.
Give up the cup,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, so therein lies,
You can
therein
have
lies a
both.
discussion we've already had.
Yeah.
And
That's
that was to what do we do with the station?
Yeah.
What do we do with it? And we had those conversations, and
Don't wait for
ultimately,
it to rot.
and yeah, don't, so we've reached the conclusion that we can renovate it, and we're gonna do something with it, but it's not gonna be exactly the way it is now, and it just won't be. There's a lot of different.
Code.
Or me code, that's exactly right, so that's part of the challenge too. So, I think the thing that people fear the most is change. And I think that's why things get debated a lot, and because people generally are afraid of change. Most humans are. I mean, that's really a common thread amongst all of us. But not all change is bad, and in many cases, the changes that I've seen have usually been evaluated quite carefully, and usually it's a educated decision, not one that's done haphazardly. If it's done haphazardly, then you're taking more of a risk. But none of the decisions that have been done that I've seen have been done in that fashion. So I think that's really the sense of it, and that's what I read these days.
Who owns that parking, that strip of parking down by the railroad tracks on the other side of Cummings?
Actually, that's there is I believe that's actually owned by a couple of the property owners on the, if I'm not mistaken, that live in that are in that area. I think it's part of that's privately owned. Yeah, some of it's privately owned. Some of it's owned by, it's still in the railroad right away. But we're working on a parking solution, working with one of the big businesses down there to try and provide some additional parking down there as well. So that hasn't been announced yet, but we're working on that right now.
Yeah, I was wondering, because it's on the other side of the insurance guy or whatever. it is.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You got signs up there saying it's his parking.
Yeah.
Two or
Jeff,
three
the
signs.
lovely
yeah.
insurance,
Yeah,
yeah,
lovely.
lovely
I
sign.
mean, does he have that whole strip there?
He owns a portion of it. He doesn't own all of it, but he owns a portion of it.
That's funny, right next to the tracks.
Yeah. Well, in any area that's not owned by the railroad, because the railroad right away is still right there. So
And who's fixing the road? Who's fixing Central Street?
that's the state. State's fixing that right now.
Nobody's
So-
fixing that. Isn't
Yeah,
that a
'cause
town?
no, it's actually, Central Street is actually the old 140.
Yeah, old.
So that's the,
They
yeah.
didn't turn it over to us?
No, they've never given it over to us. We've asked them to turn it over to us, but quite honestly, I don't want it until they fix it first.
Yeah, fine.
You know, so let them fix it first and then we'll take it. But we've actually approached them about possibly taking it over, but quite honestly, they want it. They want to keep it, so they're gonna pave it. And we pushed to have it repaved, because it was in tough shape.
Yeah.
So they're doing it right now.
What
What
the
about
hell do they want
Mechanic
that?
Street, will they be repaving that?
Yeah, Mechanic Street's gonna be done this year, actually. So right now,
Yeah.
so what they had to do all the water connections and the water services,
Yeah.
and that's all been
Oh.
done. So
Yeah,
we're
you can hear
closing.
them trucks hitting it.
Yeah, and the same thing with Beach Street. Beach Street should be done later this year as well. So those are all on the list to be done this year. So we're making good progress on those fronts. But yeah, no, the streets and the buildings and everything that we're working on right now is actually working pretty well. The new borough school project will be coming. They'll be starting construction in the fall on that as well. We're getting close to that.
The circle, the roundabout.
The roundabout, they're gonna start construction right after the 1st of May. So that's the one down near 140 and,
Yeah.
yeah, that's,
Whatever that
so the interesting story about that is that they gave us a grant of $600,000 to build a new roundabout. We got a grant from the state to help us with that. And then we put it out to bid, and they changed the specs on us. They said, no, they want you to do full depth reconstruction the whole time we're shaking our heads, going, why do we want to do that? I mean, the road is already, it's a good road. We don't need to, it's already compacted, it's been compacted for 50 years, why would we want to redo, build up reconstruction? They said, no, you gotta do it that way. So when you do that, it bumped the price like $300,000. So then we said, look, if this is your road, you're paying for it, we're not paying for it. So we went back to them, and they agreed with us. They said, we're gonna change the specs, we're gonna pay for it. But it took almost 2 years to get that fixed. So,
But you held your ground.
we held our ground, oh yeah, we held our ground. We would not, we said, we're not paying for that with local dollars. This is your road. You want it designed that way, then you have to pay for it. So yes, yes.
Bill, I went to the hospital in January. I was charged $1,000 to ride in our ambulance
Mm-hmm.
from Mansfield
Yeah.
Health Center. A year ago, I had the flu, and I was charged $1,000.
Mhm.
I helped pay for that in my taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I if it was you get a free ride?
No, I don't get a free ride. No, I don't get a free
Why
ride. No.
am I charged?
That's a misnomer, Brad. I do not get a free ride. Nobody gets a free ride.
Oh.
So here's the.
That's wrong. That's
Nobody should get a
wrong.
free ride in that.
When
It's-
we buy it, we pay for it, we should get a discount.
So-
Just because Medicare paid for it, I was charged $1,000.
So let me just
It
explain.
seems like Medicare pays for everything, and even in the hospital and everything else. I didn't have to pay anything, but I paid for Medicare when I was a lot younger, when I was working. Now, it seems like it's going pretty fast.
Brad, you got a deal.
Why? Because I don't like, we buy it, but we have to pay to ride it.
Well, actually, the ambulance
You
services.
know something, Bill?
Well, let me just answer your question. Now.
Something. I refused to go once,
Yeah.
and I made a mistake because of $1,000. That's wrong.
So let me just say to you that the $1,000 that you're speaking about is actually, that's what it costs to provide the service. So, because it's a service-based thing. So let me just tell you that the ambulance is paid for by insurances. So now, in the event that you do not have enough, you certainly have the ability to make a request to have some of that waived. People do that. And we do write off a certain amount for certain people under certain circumstances. But if you can't afford it.
They sent
If
a
you can't
letter to me for a survey. You know what I did with that survey?
Yeah.
I threw it in the trash.
You got a
I
deal, Brad.
said,
That was your chance
Yeah.
for
That was your chance for feedback, yeah.
Yeah.
You
That's
got
your
a
chance
big
for
deal.
feedback.
I got charged $2,000 to go to Norwood. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, but that was you, Bob.
that's
Is
not
that-
right. That ain't right.
Mine cost $2,600. How'd you get away with $2,000?
Well, I'm just saying, that was two
Oh,
something.
all right.
Yeah, but I went twice.
So he got this.
All right, so what else is going on here? What else?
I got a question.
Yeah,
About
sure.
parking for the vets at the town hall.
For the vets at Town Hall?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that we are working on right now, and I think I'm gonna be able to deal with this right after town meeting, is we are gonna put a parking space, I believe, for Purple Heart recipients. Yeah, just so, yeah, because the challenge is that there's a lot of vets in town, and there's only so many parking spaces at Town Hall, all right? So I think that's part of the challenge, is that, we can't, if we stop earmarking every space, we won't have enough for the people that are.
But if you do that, how many Purple Heart recipients are there in town?
Well, there's a few,
Yeah,
there's a
but, so
few.
that's what is gonna be in?
Well, see, people will still be able to use it. That's the thing about it, you can still use it, but you can't, the bottom line is if you get preference if you're a veteran, obviously.
So,
So
if there's a car there,
Exactly.
and you're a Purple Hat guy.
Yeah, but.
Wait a second,
Yeah,
wait a second.
yeah,
There's a car there,
yeah,
all those spots are filled
yeah,
up.
yeah.
and I come up there with a purple hat,
Exactly.
You
gotta-
sacrifice
What the hell?
twice, Bob.
what the hell do I do?
You can
You
park
can
back
park
next to it.
anywhere else, just
Right,
like
anywhere
that,
else.
doesn't make sense.
No, the parking space next is, it's all taken.
Okay,
This is nuts.
all right.
No, it's a second sacrifice.
No.
I haven't got a purple hat.
Yes, you do, Bob.
Want one?
So anyway, that's what, we're looking at that possibility. But there's only one, it's either one or the other. And there doesn't seem to be, there's not a lot of space, that's the challenge. And I think that's, I understand your point, I do. But there's not that many spaces to be out in the parking lot to begin with.
Yeah, but that, how is somebody who's not a Purple Hat recipient gonna use that? I mean, I see a handicap spot, I don't pull in there just because
No,
it's there.
yeah, well, see, I don't know if there's really I don't know, I don't really fully know the details about that, and if there's a penalty if you park there, if you aren't a Purple Heart veteran. It's more of a courtesy thing that we're gonna have for people. But I don't know
Our
if there's an
system's
actual,
good, even if some
there's
are
an actual penalty if
dishonorable.
you do park in there. So
So
that's the
so
question.
why don't you make it for veterans, one parking space for
There you
veterans?
go, that's progressive.
Yeah.
It's a good point, I'll talk,
It would get
I'll
used.
give that consideration, let me have the consideration.
Just
Well,
don't make a
our-
ton of rules, because somebody has to keep keeping them and updating them and everything
Right,
else. The more
exactly.
rules you create, the bigger the problem. A big fee on one spot, veterans only,
Yeah.
and then let the veterans use it and move
Yeah.
on next.
Yeah,
Over it, yeah.
No, that's,
okay, fair enough. We'll give that some more thought, all right?
well, our Veterans Services Advisory Committee, we stand with VSO on this.
Okay. All right.
2 spots.
Yeah.
One,
All right. All right, anybody else?
Is anything happening? You had a spot down there that the town was gonna get, or got, for more elderly housing down on Commercial. But you're not gonna do anything to sell lights down there?
Well, that's the Housing Authority's
Yeah.
project, yeah. So that project is, it doesn't really involve us per se, but we are working with them cooperatively, obviously, to try and make it happen. But there is a proposal to build, I think about 100 and some odd units down there to build some affordable for senior housing. That's a big need, without question, and we hear it every month when we have the conversation at the meetings with the manager. But I will tell you this, that we have a big need for that right now, and I think that's something that, the land is already acquired by the Housing Authority, they have the land. It's now a question of getting the right development to go in there, and that's what the Housing Authority is working on right now, trying to make that happen. But you're right, it's a big problem because of the location. They said Walnut Street and 140 is a bad intersection.
So the developer, you're evidently saying to me, that the developer is gonna have to do something about a light there.
Well, we think so, but it really depends. See, and the other thing, what they're looking at right now is whether or not, if they can connect into sewer down there off of Commercial. There's a sewer line in Commercial. They can connect into sewer down off of Commercial. They might be able to increase the number of units, and that would allow the ability for the development to become more attractive for a developer to do that and actually pay for the light as well. See, right now, to put in a light like that, it's upwards of $1 million, maybe more than that. And it's a tough location too, because you come right off the ramp from 95, and that creates a real problem right at that intersection. So it's not an easy fix. It's not an easy fix. I mean, the only other way is to close off the access from Walnut across 140, and I think there'd be a lot of people who would object to that. At least that's the sense I have. So, right?
Question,
Yes.
that building in the state hospital, this town just letting that thing go to hell, I mean, it's.
Well, we actually tried to do something with that a couple years ago.
But right now, it's open to the weather, I mean, just.
Yeah, it's closed
just
off.
away.
It's closed off, and I will tell you, there's been a lot of discussion about what we could do with that building. I don't
It's a
disagree with it.
beautiful building.
It is, well, it is, but it'd be expensive to either fix or to renovate because of the way it's constructed. So.
But it didn't cost the town anything, the state gave you that, right?
Well, the state let us use it, but they limited it in what we could use it for. So that's the problem. So we tried to change that. We tried to change it with a zoning change, and it got voted down. Now, we're gonna have to look at that again, because that shouldn't sit there like that. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's, there are a couple places that I'd like to see those things fixed. We finally think we're gonna fix the downtown piece, and maybe we'll focus on that next. But a couple people have approached us about utilizing that, and I don't disagree with you. I think that'd be a good location for something.
Yeah.
I've heard, community center, I've heard it for, different types of uses. Even a new senior center could be built in the land behind it too, but people have talked about that as well.
Well, since we're over there, what about that laundry building, way over the back?
Laundry building, we should just take down, or
Yeah.
what we should take, and that's actually gonna be in the capital plan for not this coming fiscal year, but the fiscal year after that.
To take it down?
To take it down, or to convert it to like an open air type picnic area. You could use it, put concrete over it, put new concrete flooring, and maybe put a new roof over it, and just leave it open on all four sides around. And have a nice area where kids could have picnics there and things of that nature.
Sort of like that thing off of Payson there.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody ever use that?
People use it a lot. People
Yeah.
use that a lot. Yeah, they do, believe it or not. Yeah, it's first come, first served, but, people do use it.
This is gonna farther down towards the field.
The old,
That building.
is that's a tough building, and there's been a lot of challenges with that building. It really has. And we should probably take it down, for the most part. I'm gonna wrap up with this, if that's okay with you all, and I wanna thank you for your attention this morning and your input. It's always helpful to hear from the citizens themselves, and you guys are clearly fall into that category, so thank you very much for your input.